Now, it is a huge pleasure because one of the things about the CRT is that we have numerous members who have been with us for 25 years. And we have a tenant farmer in Cambridgeshire who has been tenant of Lark Rise Farm for 25 years. And he was tenant of Lark Rise Farm when it was 20 acres. He is now tenant of Lark Rise Farm over 450 acres. And his method of farming, he can talk about. But when you've got a tenant farmer like him, you will get wildlife, you will get results, and you will get people look round your farm in absolute wonder. And so, enough of me. Tim Scott, our loyal, excellent tenant farmer at Lark Rise Farm.
Gosh, with that introduction, I'm sure my face looks the colour of these chairs. Thank you very much, Robin. For those of you who know me, I tend to get a bit of a nosebleed if I leave, well, I was going to say Cambridgeshire, actually more the farm. So being here down in the smoke, yeah, not necessarily my scene, but nonetheless, here I am. When I gave the last CRT talk, it was in a church in Barton, and I was accused, or maybe not accused, people said I was very passionate. And it was quite easy, really, because the last time I stood up in a church and gave a speech, it was, unfortunately, when I lost my father. And just like, you know, a passionate family man, I'm very passionate about the CRT. And when I was a little boy, all I wanted to do, there were two things. It was wildlife and tractors. And now, yeah, that was when I was a little boy. So 20 years on, sorry, why are you laughing? A few years on, anyway, here I am. I'm living a dream. You know, I'm sitting on a tractor, my own little bird hide, and I've got all of this wildlife around me. Possibly wasn't 25 years ago. It was pretty barren, but now I can appreciate all that wildlife. And just a final point on my dad. We have a small farm next door, but the very, very last time my dear old dad drove a tractor was on one of our fields. We call it Little Catherine's. And by then he had quite sort of advanced dementia, but he sat on that tractor and he rolled the field. My mum sat in a car and watched him, but he wanted to drive a tractor, and that's the very last time my dear old dad drove a tractor. But anyway. Robin, when I was asked to be a tenant of the trust, I had two remits, and they were for it to be a viable farm, profitable, and also have an abundance of wildlife. And I guess getting the balance, and most years ago, I also do work with an ag chem company. Don't, you know, pick on me for that. And we were showing this guy some trials. It was a farmer, and actually he's a farm accountant. And we're in the middle of the 98 land, where the hedgelaying championships that you've heard mentioned before were. And he said to me, the accountant, he said, "I just realised what you've done. This is sacrilege. This used to be a big field, and you've planted all the hedges." And I just thought, part of me was pride, and the other was, this is what we're up against. And in a way, that spurred me even more into action, just to show we can do it. So how do we farm? I often liken what we do. I like cherry pie. Lots of people like cherry pie. And what many farmers do is most farms have a bit of wildlife habitat that, if you like, is their cherry pie, is good. And what they try and do is make that cherry pie a little bit bigger, and to hell with the rest of the farm. But what we try and do at the CRT, and I keep looking at Robin, he's paying no attention, look at his notes. But what we try and do is we try and extend that cherry pie across the whole farm. We don't want the wildlife just in one little bit. We want it everywhere. And so, in a way, many other farms, and these other farmers, they're well-meaning. It's not they're bad people, but we're trying to get it across the whole farm. As has been mentioned, when we bought the land, all of our land here in Barton and Cumberton, well, not here, because we're in London, it was a blank canvas. It was literally nothing there. No hedges, open fields, one block of land, 140 plus acres, another one about the same, about another 140. And since then, we've put back hedges, we've put in grass margins. And the word we like using for our cropping is we have a mosaic. We don't have crops of winter wheat next to each other, crops of winter barley next to each other. It's a logistical nightmare when I'm planning my rotation. And I think it was Pam who was saying about winter wheat, oilseed rape, winter wheat, oilseed rape. And incidentally, Pam, your poems depressed me. The first two, but the last one was good. They're all very good, though. About two crops. And for many farmers, they know exactly what's going to be in that field this year, next year, the following year. It will be rape, wheat, wheat, rape, wheat, rape. And for us, I try and grow about 8 different crops a year. And I know Nicholas is going to say, I grow 14 or more, he may say. And you hear other farmers moaning that they have to grow 3 crops. It's sort of laughable, but it's this mosaic that we live with that brings the wildlife in, because there's all these different habitats. Other things we do is thinking about crops. We're not organic, but what I try and do is grow crops or varieties. They may be tolerant of weeds. They may be resistant to insect attack, or resistant or lower disease rating compared to, as they say, diseases. And these are things we do. And a key word in the trust is sympathetic. And our farming techniques, they are sympathetic. We look at the wildlife and the implications of actions we can do. Because at the end of the day, the wildlife lives in the fields. We don't. That's their home. And I try and do everything I can to not muck up things, the habitat for them. And there's a friend of the Trust, he's not here tonight, a chap called Will Garfitt, a big shooting man who certainly Mr. Darling knows very well. And he's written lots of things about pheasants and wandering and things like that. And he has a 5-point plan, and that is water, food, somewhere to sleep, somewhere to muck about after you've eaten, and free from disturbance, and then your pheasants won't wander. But actually, whether it's a pheasant or whether it's one of Pam's hedgehogs, or if indeed it's us, they're the things that all living animals need. And on Lark Rise, we try and provide, wherever possible, water, food, somewhere to sleep, somewhere to muck about, and somewhere free from disturbance. Our wildlife numbers, or more to the point, nationally, wildlife numbers are plummeting. For us, farmland bird numbers are going up. Once a year we have a monitoring meeting, and it's always really, really traumatic for me because I don't know how our wildlife are doing, and Vince, wherever he is, I can't see him now, will sort of reveal whether we're doing very good or not. And if odd species are slightly on a decline, I really take it to heart, and I'm very conscious I'm running out of time. What I would say is the countryside is under threat, it's under pressure from outside sources. For us in Cambridgeshire, one of the biggest ones are houses and planning. And what is absolutely bizarre is the countryside not only provides habitat for wildlife, it also provides food. And there's immense pressure that, Zach's gone so we can criticise governments, that governments want to build loads of houses in East Anglia, and 50% of all of the wheat produced in the United Kingdom is grown in a 50-mile radius of Cambridge. And where do they want to build all these houses? A 50-mile radius of Cambridge. It's absolutely bonkers. And every 30 houses built on agricultural land takes 19,000 loaves of bread out of the food chain. I'm conscious I'm out of time, but I'm just going to say this to finish with. On the Pride front, on Saturday we hosted the National Hedgelaying Championships, and I was sort of fussing around, worrying as I always do, and I wasn't aware what was going on in our fields. I was just sort of in the village area, and I walked around the corner and saw where all of these people were laying the hedges. There were cars everywhere. There was a coach. There were the competitors, spectators. And 20 years ago, there was nothing there at all. And now there are these hedges that look brilliant wherever Andrew is for organising it. But the overriding feeling I had was pride, and it sums up the CRT. So, and I would like to say I am very proud to be here now, and I'd like to thank you all for being here and sharing this experience. Thank you.